What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Big Five Pod, episode number 121. I'm your host, co-host Kyle Morello, co-host Jake Copestick next to me. Cope, it's been a little bit again, but it's summertime. We got stuff going on. First and foremost, though, how are you?
Doing well. Summer's in full swing. It's really was summer today because it was
Hot.
really hot outside. But
Yeah.
bunch of stuff to go over. We'll get into a bunch of quick hitters and tidbits because it's been a little bit. But Kyle, the first ever head coach you've ever had on, we had Darris Nichols from LaSalle University on. Super excited to talk to him. He's got a roster set. They're going to start summer workouts next week. So really good conversation with Coach Nichols. Very much appreciate his time and a milestone for us. One of the best interviews we've done. Happy we could get him on. We'll breeze through quick hitters here, and we'll get to the star of the show in a little bit. But really happy that we could make that happen. Shout out to Jordan at LaSalle, and
Yes.
yeah, really good interview with Coach Darris Nichols coming up for you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like Cope said, first current Big Five head coach to come on the pod. So we greatly appreciate Darris for coming on. We greatly appreciate Jordan Veneer at LaSalle for helping us out with that. And we got a lot talked about in the meantime because, like I said, it's been a little bit. So we're going to do Cope's quick hitters, but we're going to both contribute to this quick hitters because we have that much to go over. And I'm going to start first with one thing, and it's not necessarily relating to the Big Five and basketball, but on May 8th, and I know this is about a month ago now, Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, who was the Villanova class of 1977, was elected the 267th head of the Catholic Church and the sovereign of the Vatican City State, also known as the Pope, and Pope Leo the 14th to be exact. He's the first American Pope, and of course, like I said, he's a Villanova grad. So we are now officially the Big Five Pope, or he is officially the Big Five Pope as well. If you saw our meme last month when that happened. But shout out to Pope Leo the 14th. It's insane that we have an American Pope, and he was from Villanova, originally from Chicago. So he was actually, if you saw on TV, on the ninth inning of Game 1 of the 2005 World Series between the White Sox and the Astros. So the fact that he knows about Jermaine Dye is pretty cool. The fact that he knows about Daniel Shefu is also pretty cool. It's a really, really cool thing, Cope, and worthy of celebration for sure, even if you're not a follower of the Catholic Church. So cool thing, Pope Leo the 14th being a Villanova grad and an American, Cope. But more than that, we have coaching news, player news, scheduling news, transfer news, all the news. So Cope, why don't we start with you? And you have the ball in hand already, so give us some quick hitters here.
Well, I have to piggyback off the Pope thing because we have a Pope, potentially one of the more famous people in the world, Kyle, if not the most famous. He's a Big Five fan.
Yeah.
And he's been to has been to a Big Five game at the Palestra, has perhaps been to multiple games on Villanova's campus, watching them play basketball. He just had he put on a Villanova hat the other day. So quite the thing going on for Villanova and for Philadelphia and for everybody involved in his hometown, Chicago, that there's an American Pope. But Kyle, at least, what relates to us the most, guy's a Big Five fan. How cool is that?
That's right.
That's not that anybody ever thought of saying that, but like, how crazy is that? The leader of, the Catholic Church is a Big Five fan. We need to get him at the Palestra. Also, wild idea, but I think it'd be awesome if you could pull it off. How about a Loyola Chicago Villanova game outdoors in the Vatican?
Kobe, you might be cooking
out
something there. Listen, a Sister Jean and Pope Leo the 14th crossover would be it would break college basketball Twitter, that's for sure.
Yeah. God bless Kyle. God bless the Big Five. God bless America. God bless the Pope. God bless college basketball. What a great
Could have
thing.
said it better myself.
Yeah. Free idea, by the way. If you want to use that, please credit. Would love to go cover the game. Anyway, we can get to that. We'll get to the important stuff here. Kyle, we touched last time, whenever we recorded last, that Steve Donahue hired on as St. Joe's associate head coach. And he's being joined by DePaul's Orlando Bino Ranson, who's coming on as the assistant coach and recruiting coordinator. Now, this is a situation like Villanova had last year. Last year, Villanova hires Jamie Young from Lemoyne, and people are like, oh, is somebody leaving? It's just an unused assistant spot that St. Joe's have been using previously. So Bino Ranson comes on. Nobody's leaving. He's just taking up a spot that they weren't using previously. Been at DePaul since 2021, was there this past season under Chris Holtmann, before that Tony Stubblefield. Was at Maryland for 11 seasons prior to that, Kyle. 10 were with Mark Turgeon, and one is from the legendary Gary Williams from right over the bridge in Haddonfield, New Jersey. Before that, was an assistant at Xavier, at James Madison, at Marist. He's worked in high school. He's worked in AAU. He was at St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. He founded AAU Team Baltimore, Kyle, which, how about this? Not only did he work with Juan Dixon, one of the, if not the best player in the history of Maryland, he also worked with a guy named Ricky Harris, who went on to play at UMass and is now an assistant coach at Villanova under Kevin Willard and was previously at Maryland. It's
It all goes
it's a
back to the
small
Big
world.
Five.
Yeah, everything comes back to the Big Five. It's a small world, Kyle, and it only gets smaller. Also, tidbit on Bino Ranson, his son BJ has an offer from St. Joe's. He's already taken a visit there. He's got an offer from St. Louis, one from George Mason, from Towson, from Hampton, the DMV area that he's from. But potentially, Kyle, a guy that could end up on Hawk Hill. I mean, it wouldn't be the first time.
No.
Certainly wouldn't be the first time that the son of a coach there would join their father on Hawk Hill. So something to watch out for. But Bino Ranson, assistant coach, recruiting coordinator, new to Hawk Hill, filling out their staff. Kyle, we're going to talk about some former Big Five assistants who have now taken other jobs. I'm going to start with Dwayne Anderson II from Villanova, spent his pretty much whole career there. I mean, a guy that played there on Jay Wright's first Final Four team, was then their director of basketball ops from 2018 to 2020, an assistant coach from that point to this past season. 4-year guy at Villanova. Like I said, played on that first Final Four team for Jay Wright in 2009. He's headed to UCF to join Johnny Dawkins on his staff, as he was not retained by Kevin Willard. And he's going to join Chris Parker down there, who committed to UCF. This is about a month ago, but headed down there to join the Big 12 and rejoin Chris Parker. Going to talk about two assistants now, Kyle, who are going to the high school ranks and taking head coaching jobs at that. First, LaSalle assistant John Cox, now the head coach at Germantown Academy in the Interact. So spent the last 6 years at LaSalle, assistant coach, Dobo, director of player development, scouting, and analytics. Wore a lot of different hats to the Explorers. Going to take that experience with them, go down to the high school level, and potentially some of his guys will be seen at the college level in the Big Five. Next, Kyle, just some news that broke today. How about Chris Clark? Leaving Temple, not going very far. Probably the closest that you can go anywhere if you're going to coach basketball in the city. But he is a North Philly guy. He is a St. Joe's prep guy, Kyle, and that's exactly where he is headed. Chris Clark, former Temple assistant, going back to his alma mater to be the head coach of the prep. So good for him. Won a couple Catholic League titles while he was there. Obviously from Philly. He's a Temple guy too. Spent years as an assistant coach at Temple. But he's going to be the 30th head coach in the history of the prep. So good for Chris Clark. Not too far at all. You don't need to even move where you are. I think your commute might be 5 minutes shorter than it is in the past.
Yeah.
But congrats to Chris Clark. Shame that he's leaving Temple and they have a spot they have to fill now. But going back to his alma mater where he was a very, very good player there. Kyle, I'm going to ask for a water break. I'm asking to tap out. Talk to us about the schedule.
That's what I'm here for, Cope. All right. First things first, Temple, speaking of, are playing in Disney World at ESPN for the ESPN Orlando MTE during Feast Week, which we love. It'll take place Monday, November 24th to Wednesday, the 26th, so just before Thanksgiving. Each team will play 3 teams, and here's a list of the other teams participating in this event. Bradley, Liberty, Princeton, Vermont, Rhode Island, which, if you remember, Temple played them at the Hall of Fame last year, a neutral site game, Springfield, Mass. Towson and UC San Diego. So a lot of good names in this MTE, Cope. I'm looking at Princeton. I'm looking at Rhode Island, obviously. Towson was good in the CAA last year. I don't know exactly how it'll be this year. And UC San Diego as well. And shout out to Vermont, by the way. And shout out specifically to Jack Maldivere, my girlfriend's brother, for graduating. Just want to throw that in there. Yes, very, very good things for him. So he's a Vermont grad now. By the way, Burlington is gorgeous. That was my first time up there to watch him graduate a few weeks ago. But we're not talking about Vermont basketball right now, unfortunately. We're talking about the Big Five. So that's going to be a very fun MT, though, that Temple's going to play in down in Orlando at the Worldwide of Sports there. I don't know. I'm not going to try to pronounce it again. Villanova start home and homes with Michigan and Wisconsin this upcoming season. Two Big Ten teams. They'll play at Michigan this season, the return game at the Finn next year, and then they'll play Wisconsin at Pfizer Forum this year, and the return game at Wells Fargo next year. So two away games this year on the schedule against the Big Ten teams, but next year those return games will be here, one at the Finn, one at Wells Fargo, which is pretty cool. And listen, we, as you'll see in our interview with Coach Nichols, we talked about scheduling and MTEs and power conferences playing each other, and this is one of them. So pretty cool to see. Speaking of Coach Nichols, LaSalle will be opening the Coach Nichols era against Coppin State on November 5th at Glacier Arena. So a couple days after the official start of the season for everybody, their first game will be against Coppin State at Glacier. So make sure you go to Glacier to pack the house for that, just like last year for the first game there. And Cope, our favorite news of probably this whole cycle of scheduling. I almost want to let you announce it, but I'm on a roll right now, so I'm going to do it. The AAC tournament will be moved out of Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, finally, and new locations are announced as below. So the new AAC tournament will be held in Birmingham, Alabama this year at Legacy Arena, which is not the home arena for UAB, although they, I guess it will be a home tournament for them per se, but they play at Bartow Arena, so not their home. And then in 2027 and 2028, it'll be held in Tampa, Florida at the Yuengling Center, which is the home of South Florida and the Bulls there. But the most important thing of this, Cope, is that there is no more Dickies Arena, no more gray seats. The only events there now should be bull riding, which makes sense. Hopefully be more of a packed house and more excitement around the American tournament, because it's a pretty good tournament, but you watch it on TV on the Sunday of the championship before the selection show, and it's all gray seats and emptiness. It's kind of depressing. So we are thrilled that Dickies Arena is no longer the host of the American men's tournament. And one more thing, Cope, Drexel will be playing in an MTE themselves with Old Dominion and Morgan State. They'll play home against Old Dominion on Sunday, November 23rd, and they'll play on the road at Morgan State Tuesday, November 25th. So again, just before Thanksgiving. I'm already getting excited talking about Feats Week. I love Thanksgiving. It's my favorite holiday. We still have to pass July 4th first, of course. But and then some more scheduling news that came out in the night of this recording. Not an MTT per se, but some scheduling news. Penn will be playing at American on November 9th, and Drexel will also be traveling to American on December 3rd. So, a lot of fun scheduling news. And guys, this is going to start trickling in as we go along through the summer here. Whether that's with the Big Five, nationally, there's a lot of things to look forward to. So, as it reports for the Big Five, we're going to report it here and on our Twitter and Instagram as well, which, of course, you know where to find us at Big Five Pod. But Cope, now I'm going to take a water break. Recruiting news, back to you.
I should have taken the Dickies Arena news from myself.
I was surprised you didn't.
And
listen,
the only we got to split it up here, but I regret that because you know how strongly I feel about that.
I know.
You know the seats are gray in Dickies Arena because you can see them because they're empty because nobody's
that's
there.
correct. Yes.
Might as well just play the tournament in the morgue, dude. I mean, there's never anybody there. I mean, it's empty. It's totally the wrong place for it. It should be bull riding. I think Vanderbilt and TCU are playing a neutral site game there. If you want to do that, fine. TCU is going to play in a big arena, bigger than the one they play in their home city. Fine. But this is not the place for the AAC tournament. Shout out to Tim Pernetti, the commissioner of the AAC, for taking that on him. As soon as he got in, he realized that couldn't be the case anymore. Good on him. No more Dickies Arena, Kyle. We don't ever need it again.
It was never necessary in the first place, but
right.
Gone now.
Perhaps we can go to the rodeo or something there, but the AAC tournament should have never been there.
That's correct.
Anyway, you got me going.
I know. Listen, I know.
Yeah. Let's talk some recruiting news. Talk to Coach Nichols about two guys we're going to bring up here and how important high school recruiting is for LaSalle. But they got a 2025 guy that'll be joining the team this year. They got a 2026 guy who will be joining the team the year after that. So let's break them down. Nas Hart from College Achieve. He actually played with Deuce Jones, who, of course, was just the A10 Rookie of the Year at LaSalle, who he will be facing twice or more.
Or more. We had 4 last year, Cope, between those two teams. So
it could happen again. It could. But This is a big, wiry athlete that I think is going to be really good at LaSalle with some of the size they have now. 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, can step out and hit threes. Just a long, wiry athlete at the center spot who can do some other things contrary to what a big guy typically does in block shots, dunk, and finish. So really interesting guy to get on campus. This is an older team, but we'll see if he can have an impact from year one. He certainly has the tools to do so. A really interesting player at that size. And when you look at some of the guys they have there now, they don't have somebody who's 6'10" who can, be doing what he's doing. So Nas Hart from College Achieve, big fella, 6'10". He'll be joining the Explorers this year. Kyle, let's talk about who's going to be joining them next year. And it's a guy from literally right up the street. 2026 guard RJ Smith from Imhotep. He's a two-time public league MVP, plays for Team Final in the EYBL circuit. Delaware State, Bryant, Florida Gulf Coast, Stony Brook, Merrimack were after this guy. And rather than go out of state or go somewhere else, he's going to be playing basketball right down the street on 20th and Only. He's 5'9", he's a little guy, but don't let that deceive you. Fast, quick, a great spin move, a really good three-point shooter, shot 42% from three this past year at Imhotep. 16 points a game, 4 assists, 3 steals, and those three-point numbers. Like, this guy's got some serious skill and some stat sheet stuffing ability to bring the 20th and Only. So Coach has only been there for a handful of months now, and he's already hitting the road by bringing in one of the best players, if not the best, was the best in the public league twice already. So, Kyle, let's talk about Penn now. Interesting commitment here. Peyton Kamen from Worcester Academy in the NEPSAC. He is going to be very likely, unless there's a surprise, the Quakers' final addition to the 2025-2026 roster. He's from Chicago. He played at DePaul Prep. He dealt with some injuries. He had a shoulder injury, a foot injury. Like, he's dealt with a lot to get to where he is, and his recruiting has fallen off because of those injuries. Because you look at this guy, he's a first-team guy in the NEPSAC, one of the best high school and prep leagues in the country, and he led the conference in scoring at almost 28 points a game. So Penn is getting quite the scorer, a near 42% three-point shooter. He's got size. He's not a wow athlete as far as being quick, but the guy's just savvy and he gets to his spots. And what a terrific shooter this guy is at this size. So good addition for Penn. This is going to be a large roster, of course, with no limits on Ivy League teams about how many guys you can have. But this guy's got the skill to play at the Ivy League. And when you look at who else was looking at him, took a visit to Brown, took one to Yale, took one to Dartmouth. Certainly a guy that was drawing Ivy League interest that a lot of people think can play at this league. So really good addition for Penn. And Kyle, his first recruiting letter he ever got came from Fran McCaffrey when he was at Iowa. So we're circling back here, circling the wagons, and one thing led to another, and Peyton Kamen is a Penn Quaker. So pretty cool. There was a really good article written on him detailing his recruitment, and this guy's been through a lot to get here, and he's got all the skill and then some to be a really good Ivy League player. Kyle, we'll move on to a guy from Villanova. This is a bit of an older commitment. They got a 2025 commitment from center Nico Onyekwere. Committed to Florida State. You can tell why. This guy, 7 foot, 240. This is not a rail-thin center you're getting. This is a man. This is a man that you're getting at the center spot. This is a big dude. And when you see his length, his shot blocking, his size, his girth, like, it's clearly a guy, he's a Leonard Hamilton guy. But he retires. Nico reopens his commitment, and here he is ending up at Villanova. So he played at Long Island Lutheran with Kion Anthony, the son of Carmelo, who's headed to Syracuse next year. Blocked 4 shots against Sierra Canyon in a nationally televised game this year. He's big. He's going to block shots. He's going to clean up misses, dump down passes. He can finish at the rim. This is a big dude who's an old school center, and I think right away is the intangibles really to keep up with the physicality of the Big East. Not to mention, Kyle, with Duke Brennan and Braden Pierce and now Nico, the days of playing, with Eric Dixon as your center are gone. This is going to be a big Villanova team. They're going to have some serious size, strength, and bodies to withstand the physicality of the Big East. Kyle, lastly, rounding out our recruiting news here, this is a big one that we have a commitment coming later this month that could affect not only a team in the Big Five, but could directly affect him if he decides to go to their in-conference rival. and that is Sammy Jackson from Roman Catholic. St. Joseph's made the Final Four for him. He's a 2026 guy coming into school, not this upcoming year, but next year. Son of Temple alum Mark Jackson. So plays at Roman, plays for team final. He's a number one player in Pennsylvania in the class 2026, a top 100 recruit nationally. Mark your calendars because Wednesday, January 5th is his decision day. He's already taken an official visit to St. Joe's. He did that on Tuesday, June 3rd of this week. He still has to take visits to VCU, Indiana, and Texas before he makes a decision. His father played a year at VCU before going to Temple. Potentially there's something there. Also, Kyle, really would be a shame if St. Joe's lost out to Phil Martelli Jr. on a Philly guy of this caliber that you think you can get. So a pretty big commitment, especially when you see that Indiana and Texas are in on Sammy Jackson too. But 6'7", can shoot, very smooth. The best player in the state in his class. So St. Joe's, they've already had that visit. That's already done. Now they hold their breath and they wait till June 25th to see where he goes. But would be a massive commitment for St. Joseph's to get the best player in the state from Roman. They have Xavier Brown. They have Anthony Finkley. Like, that would be massive to get another guy like that coming down the pipeline. Lastly, Kyle, we'll make these quick. Talk about some Big Five transfers committing elsewhere. We have a trio of LaSalle guys to go over. First is Andres Marrero. He is headed to Merrimack to play for Joe Gallo, who once upon a time we thought would be the LaSalle head coach. He's headed up to Merrimack, redshirted the 2021-2022 season, played 3 years at LaSalle after that, averaged 3.6 points and 1.8 rebounds this past year. Off season for him shooting the ball from three, just 26%, but he did make 12 starts. Shot almost 40% from three, 2023-2024 season. So it's there. I think at that level in the NEC, he can certainly play there. But Andres Marrero headed to Merrimack. They're playing in the Cathedral College Basketball Classic. He will get another crack at the Explorers, just wearing a different uniform. Next, Kyle, a pair of LaSalle guys headed to the D2 ranks. So Jorge Sanchez Ramos headed to D2 Kentucky Wesleyan. He had to redshirt the last 2 years at LaSalle. This year, he had an upper body injury that he suffered in the summer, kept him out. Played in 8 games, making 2 starts during his freshman campaign in the 2022-2023 season, being Fran Dunphy's first at LaSalle. So he's moving down to the D2 level. Hopefully he's healthy, some more playing time there, a level that suits him a little bit better. Next, Kyle, Lucas Mercandino. He's also headed down to the D2 ranks, headed to Lubbock Christian, LCU. Did not play this last year due to injury as well. He, just like Jorge Sanchez Ramos, he played 8 games in the last season that he played in, and that was the 2023-2024 season. So for these guys, wish them well. Hopefully they can stay healthy and there's a level that they can play at. And Kyle, we will end before we get into the main event here, before we get into the entree here of this here episode. St. Joe's transfer, Sean Simmons II. He had taken, I think, a visit to Grand Canyon and kind of been taking his time with this, but he's headed to UMass Lowell. Appeared in 52 games over 2 years with the Hawks, 1.5 points, 1.1 rebounds this season. Dude's got bounce. He's got athleticism. He's long. Just couldn't quite carve out a consistent role here for the Hawks. But rooting for this guy. I mean, you could tell like his energy and how much his teammates liked him. So just a matter of playing time here. It's not like there was any bad blood. He just wanted to play somewhere. So we wish him all the best with the Riverhawks, Kyle, of UMass Lowell. And with that, let's get into the main event, Kyle.
Let's get into the main event, Cope. And of course, that is LaSalle head coach Darris Nichols, the first ever current Big Five coach to be on this podcast. And we're so excited to bring this into you right now. So why don't we get into it? Here's Coach Nichols. All right, people. So as promised, the very first time in Big Five pod history, here on episode number 121, we have our first current Big Five head coach joining us, and no other than LaSalle's Darris Nichols. Coach Nichols, how are you?
I'm great. I appreciate you guys having me, man. That's, the stuff you guys put out, like I said earlier, man, it's like a cheat code for me. So I follow Big Five Pod on social media, and, with the landscape changing so fast, it's kind of seeing who guys, acquired and the portal and all that stuff is, it's been helpful.
Well, we very much appreciate that, Coach. Very much so. First and foremost, not just besides how are you, but how are you settling into, being in Philly, being at LaSalle? How's this change, coming for you so far?
I mean, it's great. Like, my staff's been extremely helpful. Our administration here at LaSalle's been great getting me acclimated to the city of Philadelphia. So, it's been the hardest part is getting the team together. And, we've done that, but, outside of that, it's been extremely helpful having, keeping Mike Doyle on staff who knows the ins and outs of LaSalle and, the city of Philadelphia. So this has been really good.
So, Coach, I want to take you back here. It's been about 3 months since you were hired. It feels like it's a lot longer than that, just how fast time goes. But let's take you back to when you take this job.
Yeah.
This is a job that anybody will tell you is a tough one. Yeah. And every single thing I read on you, that does not seem to faze you at all. So you take this job. Ash Puri's the athletic director, very supportive of men's basketball and athletics in general at LaSalle with everything he's doing there and adding programs. You also have a president who's a former college basketball player as well.
Exactly.
So with everything about this job, people say it's tough, yada, yada. You have a lot of support here from the administration. When you're speaking to them, was there what clicked with you guys that this was a spot for you?
I mean, the thing that makes me excited about this job, one is the people. And, President Allen, Puri, just through the interview process, I felt their energy and their belief in, the vision where LaSalle basketball can go. So that was attractive to me. And I felt like, they're working with me to get it going in the direction that we need to get going. And the other thing that attracted me to it is everybody keeps saying, oh, it's a hard job. To me, I'm stubborn. So I like to take on challenges. I like to do things that people say, are hard and, you can't do. So for me, the exciting part about it is just the people that we have on our team, not just our staff, but, the administration. So that's what attracted me to the job when, I started having initial conversations.
And you're coming from your hometown. You're coming from Radford. That is another job that you've said people told you was a hard one. But just real quick here, like you're from there. You were there for 4 years. Was it still a little hard to leave there? Because I read that you were staying with your parents and you were biking to work every day in your hometown.
Well, I biked to work once. I walked the other days. I got tired of biking, so I walked. And not to cut you off, but I know where you're going. It was hard. Just being at home, that being my first head coaching job. In this profession, you sacrifice family a lot. I've moved all over the country. It's the first time I actually, been close to my parents being in this profession. And, then just the joy I saw them with coming to games, being involved in the program, recruits going over to my mom and dad's house, meeting my parents and, this family atmosphere. But I thought that's something that we could create here too at LaSalle. And, being in the Atlantic 10, the Conference of the 10, the city, all those things is something that I couldn't turn down. So for me, it was an opportunity that I was excited about.
Yeah. And, one of the biggest things, I guess probably the biggest thing in college basketball and college sports right now is just 3 letters. It's NIL. I'm sure you're tired of hearing about it. And the transfer portal, of course, even more so. Yeah. With your administration, with your general manager, Safat Castrat, all the alumni support, what is, how is LaSalle going to be set up for future success in this era? Because, it's been kind of a theme with LaSalle, and I'm sure you've heard that they aren't always the most NIL rich and resource rich program in, throughout their history of this era so far. Yeah. How is in your era now? How is LaSalle going to be set up for success?
I mean, I've been in a situation like that at Radford. I mean, comparable to some of the teams in the league, it was the same situation. I think a lot of people, when you talk about NIL, that's great to have money, but you can also pay the wrong guys. You see a lot of college basketball teams paying the wrong guys and become lazy in their evaluation. I think evaluation is the biggest key. I think understanding, asking the right questions, because it's different. It's not like you're recruiting, when I was at the University of Florida, you're not watching players and evaluating them for a span of, 4 years anymore. You're evaluating in 2 weeks and you're trying to sign guys faster. So it's key to make quicker decisions, find the guys that fit you and what you want to build, and not just getting caught up in paying the best players that you think are going to make an impact. Because at the same time, you still get the most important aspect of a team is still team chemistry. So you can get a whole bunch of the wrong guys because you paid them a lot of money and it still not work out. So the valuation is still a big key for us.
Yeah, and I think it's a big key, obviously, for any team. One of the keys in evaluation is your staff as well. And we're having one of your staff members on our Big Five Spaces, Sunday Spaces show, which we haven't done in a few months. But Colin Curtin's joining us on Spaces on Sunday. He's previously worked with Joe Mahalik and your brother Shane. What made him a perfect fit for your staff?
I've known him for a long time. I think the biggest thing when you're a head coach is, and I learned this from John Beeline, a college coach that I played for. You can try to go out here and find the best offensive guy, the best defensive guy, this guy that's attached to a player, but you got to find guys that believe in you. And that was big for me. And, the fact that Colin's from Philadelphia, knows a lot of people. His dad's a LaSalle alum. And just knowing the lay of the land and his track record. I mean, he's worked his way up. He was a manager for Speedy Morse. Then he goes and he's a manager for Joe Mahalik. Then he's the ops guy for Joe Mahalik. Then he works his way up, becomes an assistant. And then, just watching what he did in the TBT with head coaching experience, I thought, his resume is different than a lot of people. And the number one thing, he's a great dude.
So I want to move on to guy who you're taking over for here in Brand Dunphy. And you've mentioned that at multiple different times, even with him moving into a different role, still being in the athletic department, always somebody that you can go to for advice and somebody that's kind of helped usher you into LaSalle here. What has he done in your time there? And how good is that to have not only a guy who knows LaSalle, knows Philadelphia, but it's really a legend around here helping you out?
It's great because, the success that he has, the respect that he has, not only, in this area, but nationally, especially in college basketball game, you hear stories of Dunph from all over. Like when I got the job, a lot of people were calling, tell Dunph, I said, hello, Dunph did this for my family. Dunph helped me do this. And you just understand the impact that he's created, not only in the community, but in college basketball. And it's something that he's done for me already in terms of connecting the dots. When I call, he'll call back, and he's just been a great resource. And, with Joe Mahalik on staff, who he's really close with, sometimes Coach Mahalik will reach out to him. So it's not directly from me, but he's just been a guy that really, sometimes when, guys retire, they're not really a part of the program, or they don't really want to overstep their bounds. And I think that he really wants to help us succeed. And, he's been really good for us.
And, of course, his nickname is Mr. Big Five, being the all-time winningest coach in the city, 3 different stops. And we got to ask you about the Big Five being the Big Five podcast. So different format than what it once was. You're going to get a game on campus against the city team. You're going to play down in Wells Fargo Center. And even with all of that, just from you being on campus and speaking to alumni or people in the athletic department, people in the community, like, what have you realized from them, like how important the tradition is here and how important it is for you guys to win these games?
It's really important. It's bragging rights. Like, some of our guys right now in the summertime are playing pickup against some of the other Big Five players. So, it's just bragging rights is something that's probably, started from, in middle school on up to high school. And, people that are alums, it's just they can go to work and brag, my team beat your team. So, it still is deep. But, it really stuck out to me when I went to the Coaches versus Cancer breakfast, and I went down to the Palestra. That was my first time being in there, and I caught myself walking around the concourse for half of the breakfast because I was just looking at all the people who coached in the building, people who played in the building, the history behind it, and being a basketball junkie, that that really stuck out to me, and so I understand how important it is.
Yeah, and you took the words right out of my mouth because I was going to ask you about you walking around the Palestra. It's obviously, not only the cathedral of college basketball, but the most important singular building in the Big Five. And Cope and I have debated throughout the last couple of years about whether or not the Big Five Classic should be at the Wells Fargo Center. Should they do more at the Palestra? What are your thoughts just in general on playing in the Palestra in the future? I know you guys have an MTE there, which we'll get into in a little bit, but what are your thoughts on playing there more in the future?
I would love to. I would love to. I mean, just being in there, obviously wasn't set up for a game, but just seeing, the size of the arena, it's big enough, but it also seems intimate. I just think the history behind it, it makes it special. So, I would love to play there as much as possible.
And speaking of that, and the MTE I just mentioned, obviously that's the Cathedral of College Basketball Classic, which you'll be playing in. Penn obviously will be playing in that as well. So, and MTEs are the talk of November and December these days. Power conference teams want to play other power conference teams. They want neutral site games against each other. It makes scheduling harder in general, but I think especially for mid-major and low-major conferences and schools, especially it makes it really hard because even the good ones, power conference teams don't want to play them. But how hard is it to schedule in general these MTEs and these neutral site games when you're not a Power 4 conference, Power 5 conference?
Really hard because the numbers have changed a lot. Like when, the NCAA committee talks about, quads and the computer numbers, there's different ways that some of these schools are, manipulating the numbers, and they figured it out. Like, if you're in a conference like the SEC and you're playing pretty much every game in conference, you're playing against a quad 1 or maybe a quad 2. It's like, okay, so do I play a quad 4 and beat this quad 4 by 50, or do I play a quad 3 and, beat them by 15? So the computer numbers are kind of rewarding the quad 4s in terms of scheduling if you're at a Power 5. So, that's why it's, getting harder to get games. And, my first year at Radford, everybody wanted to play me. First year head coach, nobody knew what we did, anything. So then, as we got better, it's like, I don't want to play you guys. You guys are too good. And you saying that, I don't know if teams are worried about you beating them. They're worried about how much they beat you by. So that's what's made it difficult.
Coach, I want to get into your coaching style now and talk about some on-court stuff, but also just you and your style and your demeanor here. So something that stuck out at your press conference, you said you want your 12 to beat the other team 7-8, however that may be. There's arguments for both sides. Like Leonard Hamilton of Florida State, successful in playing a lot of guys. Also, Ben McCollum, who just won at Drake in the tournament, says he plays a really short bench. He doesn't want to get guys out of rhythm. So there's been success on both sides here, but specifically playing that many guys, why does it work for you and have success for you?
It works for us because of who we evaluate as well. And just developing the team chemistry piece. Like if you have a whole bunch of selfish guys, it's not going to work. But if you have some guys that understand, okay, I may not play as many minutes, but I'm playing more possessions because, okay, when we get in the game, we're speeding the game up, we're pressing, we're doing different things. But I just think that, the situation we're in, it makes more sense to get a whole bunch of guys that are tough, hungry guys, and we're out there team's best 7 that they paid a lot of money for. And, that's kind of, the philosophy we had at Radford. One year we couldn't do it because we lost 4 guys to season-ending injuries, and we had a short bench. We played 8, 9 guys, and by the end of the year, you're worn down. So it hasn't worked for me. So I love playing a lot of guys, and it's kind of like which position you're in. It's like, okay, if you're a starter, you may not like it. If you're a bench guy, you may love it because you got more opportunity. But I love wearing teams down, and that's just kind of been our philosophy.
And another one of your philosophies seemingly is playing at a little bit of a slower tempo. Your teams have played at a sub 300 tempo your 4 years at Radford. And I want to talk about that, but I also kind of want to zoom out a little bit and talk about the bigger picture of that. We love using Ken Pom and Evan Mia and analytics and things like that. And we talk about it a lot on here. We talk about it, when we're going to games and we ask coaches questions about it. So being that this is our first time talking to you, I want to know your philosophy on, analytics and how much you use, maybe not just Ken Pom, but how much you and your staff uses numbers, and I guess math is a different way of putting it. But how much do you rely on analytics versus, as people say on Twitter and stuff, knowing ball? Obviously, a lot, but like how much is your staff going to rely on that specifically?
Yeah, we don't use numbers to change our philosophy. Some people will use numbers and then change their philosophy. We use the numbers to tell a story, to sell our philosophy. Like, for example, the highest percentage shot in basketball is a free throw. So that's our philosophy, is getting to the free throw line. Some coaches are like anti mid-range jump shots. I'm not anti mid-range jump shots. It's when you take them. We're not taking them, coming down in transition, pulling up, shooting mid-range jump shots. But some guys are hesitant and miss mid-range jump shots because they're like, am I allowed to take it? Am I not? So our philosophy every year is to get to the free throw line. We want to be top 25 in the country, get to the free throw line. We're going to be top 50 in offensive rebounding. And then if you think about it, the correlation between being one of the best offensive rebounding teams in the country, you usually draw more fouls. Because when you're crashing four guys, they're more likely to call holding and stuff like that. So our whole goal is to get into the bonus early, because it goes along with the depth. Because if I'm playing 12 guys and, the rest of them usually even up the fouls, a lot of times I have your three best players out of the game while, I'm playing 12 guys who can make an impact.
And that kind of also goes back to your tempo. Well, we were going to ask you about tempo because it's a possession-based game. Offensive rebounding is, a huge part of that. But tempo as well, if you're slowing down and maybe not having as many, possessions naturally because you're not pushing the pace, how much does that play a factor into your offense? And is that, how did you come to have that philosophy of playing at a slow tempo?
We've slowed it down. It wasn't by design. I don't like turnovers. So if we're going to play fast and you turn the ball over, okay, now we're not going to play fast anymore because you keep turning the ball over. So then we're going to grind you out. We're going to slow it down. And, you played in pickup games where, you're playing against team and they just keep passing and cutting and you wear down. So that's kind of what we've done is, okay, if we're playing all of these guys on offense, we're going to wear you down and you got to guard these cuts, these screens. And so some team, I don't want teams to be rest on defense.
Coach, I want to take you off the court a little bit and kind of speak to how you are as a leader of your team and these guys. So I got to interview Josiah Harris recently for an article for Mid-Major Madness. I want to apologize to Josiah because I should have already had this thing out for him. But he had said that in the midst of a losing streak that you guys had, he called in a team meeting and you weren't afraid to call guys out. You asked everybody to tell the room what their role was, and if that wasn't what aligned with you, you weren't afraid to call those guys out. However, he also told me he was in your office almost every day chopping it up with you. So how important is it for your team, whether it's been the Radford guys, the guys you're bringing in now, to see both sides of you, respect you as a coach, and be somebody that can be comfortable talking to them?
Yeah, we want to create an environment where guys can do their best work. And I never wanted to feel like, okay, if they come to the office, I don't want to feel like it's principal's office. If I call them and say, hey, come see me, I don't want them to say, okay, well, what did I do wrong? And as an assistant coach moving into a head coach, I noticed that, your words are more powerful. They lean into everything you're saying. And I didn't want an environment to be like that. So we make our guys come to the office every day. And a lot of times we're not talking about basketball. You got to think about it. We brought in 14 new guys. So the relationship piece has to continue to be built. And I don't want my first conversations with any of my guys to be on the practice floor. So, for example, we'll do stuff like sometimes we don't put gear in the locker room. We'll just have it in the office. And if you don't have any gear, it's probably because you haven't came to the office, but we don't tell you when it's up there. So we try to do creative things to create that environment where they just come up here and we're not talking basketball. We're just talking about life. We're talking about, music, shop, whatever. And, I think that's why we've built team chemistry is because they understand that we care about them as players. And I think in this new NIL climate, some of that could get lost a little bit. The relationship piece is like, okay, well, I'm paying you this money. You should be doing this at a high level now because I'm paying you money. But you think about it in the real world, when you're working a 9-to-5 job, you're still getting paid money. But I'm sure you want an environment that feels like it's a great environment that whoever you're working for is still, a relationship-based person.
So on that topic of team meetings and speaking to these guys, talk to me about elephants. How do elephants fit into your team meetings here?
Yeah. So, it's funny because Safet Castrat, my GM, he was with me at Radford. And I always try to be creative with this generation and how I teach and how we do things. So I knew something was wrong with our team, and we have hard conversations. And so I had him playing elephant noises like in the background while I was running film, and guys were kind of like looking around, wondering what it was, and they were like, "Cause what's that noise?" And I didn't hear it, and they kept saying, "What is that noise?" And I was like, "Oh, I hear it now." And they said, "It sounds like a safari or whatever." And I said, "No, it sounds like it's an elephant. There might be more than one elephant in this room." And I asked them, I stopped the film, I said, have you guys ever heard of the saying there's an elephant in the room? And they said, "Yeah, we've heard it." I was like, "What does that mean?" And they explained what it meant. And I said, so we're going to talk about the elephant in the room or whatever elephants it is. And so we talked about it. Then we left the room, let the players talk about it, address it. And now, I don't play elephant noises. We have a stuffed animal, an elephant stuffed animal. And whenever we're getting ready to have a hard conversation, we bring the elephant out and they know, okay, it's time to have a hard conversation. And I think this generation, we expect them to talk about basketball related issues as much as we talk about them as a coaching staff, and they don't. So we have to create the time. We have to block off the time for them to talk about issues within the team. So we'll do that to them. Some days before practice, we'll say, okay, 10 minutes, issues before the team. Don't come out here before it's resolved. And then, they'll talk about it.
I love that. That's awesome. All right, let's talk about this year's team, Coach. You mentioned how you have a bunch of new guys coming in this year, but you do have one returner, and that's Eric Acker, who was brought in last year. What was the conversation for him like to stay here at the Salle this year?
It was kind of the same conversation with all of them. I think in this climate, and it's different than when I got the job at Radford, all of these guys have options. So I didn't ask any of them to stay. I didn't beg any of them to stay. I didn't pay any of them extra money to stay. I was like, do you want to be here? Because I would rather know if you want to be here or not now. I don't want to know during Christmas break when you're halfway out the door. So I'd rather lose good players right now. And so, it wasn't really a conversation. It was like, okay, what do you see my role being? And I told him, what are your expectations for me? And I told him, and then, he wanted to stay.
So I want to talk about three guys that, I'm going to group three guys together here because we could be all here all night talking about your newcomers.
Yeah, we got so many of them.
Yeah, if you got a laundry list of new guys here to go over. So I'm going to group together Josiah Harris, Justin Archer, and Truth Harris, three guys that have played for you at Radford. I'm sure you would have loved to bring as many Radford guys that you were familiar with to move up with you. But these three guys in particular, what is it about them that they can make this transition up with you?
They understand what we demand in our standards. High-level competitors. They've been in college forever. They understand obviously what we want. And if you look at it, like when we do evaluations, back to evaluations, if you look at it, a lot of people in the portal will look at, okay, this guy only averaged 7 points per game. I don't look at it like that. I'll go, we're talking about KenPom. What are they nationally ranked in that is important to us? So you look at Justin Archer, he didn't play this year. 2 years ago for me at Radford, he's number 6 in the country in offensive rating. He didn't try to do stuff he couldn't do. I think he was top 30 in the country in offensive rebounding. Offensive rebounding is really, really important to us. You look at Josiah Harris, I think he was top 50 in the country in offensive rebounding. So those things translate. Truth Harris, I think he's 46 in the country in three-point field goal percentage. So sometimes people can say, well, this guy did it at this level. Will it translate? Well, a lot of those national numbers translate at a high level. So that's what was important to me, bringing those guys along.
So I want to touch on one more guy. I'm going to kick you back over to Kyle then. But you bring Jaden Johnson in, who you were recruiting hard to try and get for you to play at Radford. And he gets a year under his belt at Old Dominion. He starts a bunch of games for them. He now moves up from the Sun Belt where ODU is to move up to you. But just how much different is recruiting now versus, however many years ago when the transfer portal wasn't a thing, that you have a guy that you're really already familiar with, you're just trying to sell on a new spot?
Yeah. With him, when he told us no and went to Old Dominion, he felt so bad. He called me and, he's kind of, tippy-toeing around. I said, hey, man, this ain't a hard decision. I know you're going to another school. He's like, how do you know? I said, because we get told no way more than we get told yes. And I know when you're going to tell me no. And so, this time around in the spring, his dad, he enters the portal, and his dad, reaches out, and he's saying, man, he didn't think y'all would want him because he told you guys no last year. I said, hey, I just told you. I told him last year. We always get told no. But just, as a freshman playing 35 minutes a game, that's hard to play that many games as a freshman. So that shows your discipline, your ability to take care of your body, your toughness, because, it's hard to do. And the biggest thing with him is, like, he's a true point guard. I play point. He understands how to make others better. He understands how to get people shots. Nationally ranked, I think, top 130 in the country in assist rate. So, he's just a high-level point guard who's tough.
Absolutely. And one person who is ranked pretty high in some categories that you love, but not necessarily might not show up on Ken Palm, that would be Edwin Daniel, who was the leading rebounder and shot blocker at JUCO last year. Now, he's not the only one from the JUCO ranks on your team now. What is it about these JUCO guys that you like that's different from, freshmen or, up and coming like that?
I like the fact that they've been through it. They've been on little buses, 16-passenger buses, going through backwoods town. They have to get out and play a high-level game. They a lot of times they have an appreciation level for where they are. The things they've been through at the junior college level with limited resources at some of these schools, and they're still successful. And if you look at them, it's like, okay, some of them may not have a meal plan like we do at LaSalle. Okay, so we watch them and we say, okay, well, we get them here, we can put 15 pounds on them really fast. And the biggest thing that we know translates in this game is rebounding. And, Edwin Daniels, 6'10", left-handed. He's actually ambidextrous. He shoots left-hand, but he's really right-handed. A lot of people don't know that. And we recruited him when we was in Radford, and we didn't think we had a chance at him. Then he got here, and I was like, let's make another run at it. And, we're excited about him, his toughness, his energy level, and I think he could be a really good one for us.
And just like Cope did earlier, I'm going to group another 3 players together because you got a lot of guys coming in, as we've talked about. But this is specific to local guys. Jerome Brewer Jr., Marcus Randolph, Noah Collier. They all played 4+ years in college as well. So, you talking about experience and how important that is. But in terms of those guys in particular, what can they bring to this team with their skills and their experience?
Yeah, I think a high level of toughness. Like, I think they're extremely disciplined in what they do. Like, they take care of their bodies. They eat well. They're always in the gym. And, just them being local kids, wanting to come back home, playing in front of their families, being in the community. That was a big thing for all 3 of them was, okay, how can I make an impact in my community my last year as well as playing? And, that was a big decision for them, a big reason why a lot of them came back and, chose LaSalle. But I just think, great dudes that are tough and all of them can do different things. But, Marcus Randolph's played a lot of games, had a really good year at St. Peter's. We played against Noah Collier, so I've seen him live. So I know how talented he is. And Jerome Brewer, the guy that sat out last year. And a lot of times when you're looking in the portal, you may not look at that past year. You have to go back and understand how good these players really are.
I want to talk about a guy. You talk about guys who can do a lot of different things. Well, Rob Dockery's nickname is Mr. Versatility with how much he can do as a quarterback in high school. But this guy transfers down from Texas A&M where it just didn't work out. There's a coaching change, but you got an SEC level recruit now coming to play for you. So this guy with this pedigree, how good can he be? Even if you didn't see it last year because he didn't play that much, how good can this guy be for you this year?
I think he'd be really good. I think the biggest thing with him is like you said, his versatility. I think he's a guy that, he can have, 5+ assists. He can have 5+ rebounds, points, he can score it. So I think he can do a little bit of everything. I think the thing that a lot of people don't realize is how versatile he is as a defender. I think he can really defend 1 through 4. He's strong. He's probably about 6'6", 6'7". So we're excited about Doc. I think he can be a versatile piece where he can play the 1 through the 4.
I want to talk about high school now because you guys recently just got 2 high school commits. You have RJ Smith, who's coming next year. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is Nas Hart coming this year?
Nas Hart's coming this year.
So you got a 2025 and then you got a 2026. But we talk so much about the transfer portal, all these new guys you're bringing in, but still at the high school ranks. How much of an emphasis is this going to be for you guys, being that you're in such a talent-rich city? I mean, RJ Smith, you could walk or you could take your bike to go watch him play. Like, how big is high school recruiting going to be for you?
It's going to be big. I think a lot of times people, this time of year, I think a lot of coaches think, yeah, I like this player, but can we get somebody next spring that is, ready to play? And so for us, it's like when we evaluate high school kids, I go into it with the mindset, can he help us year one? Can he make an impact year one? If we don't feel like they can make an impact year one, it's not really beneficial for them or us, because I understand. I mean, you got to think the urgency of players want to make an impact is different than when I played. I didn't start till I was a junior. I played freshman, sophomore year, but if you don't start if you don't start until you're a junior nowadays, like, you're gone. So I understand the climate and the difference of it. So we recruit to that.
All right, Coach, we've talked about your coaching style, a little bit about you, about recruiting, your roster. Now let's get into some fun stuff to end this episode here. So your brother Shane is on your staff at LaSalle. He was on your staff at Radford.
Yep.
What is one thing that he is better than you at, and what is one thing you are better than him at?
What is one thing he's better than me at? Are we talking about right now?
We can say right now. We can also say in your childhood growing up too, though.
One thing he was better than me at as a child was shooting. The thing that I'm better than him and still am is an overall basketball player.
I love that answer. I love it.
So, Coach, for a guy like you, you've coached at all different levels. You've played in the biggest level in Division I. You've also been in the D2 ranks as well. I'm always curious to see what coaches in your position have to say. What is the worst away locker room you've ever been in?
The worst away locker room I've ever been in. Sheesh. Presbyterian.
They have you getting changed in like the cafeteria or like the boiler room? Like what's the setup there?
It was kind of like a conference room, but they had like FCA meetings going on in the next room over.
Oh my God.
And it was, we're in the middle, it's halftime, and, the coach is yelling and screaming, they're on the other side, having an FCA meeting. And I was like, hey guys, we got to go out the hallway.
That's something, that's for sure. All right. Your best recruiting story, just in general.
Oh, best recruiting. Okay. So I was recruiting, I was at Wofford. And this kind of goes in hand with evaluation. So he was recruiting a big kid, Cameron Jackson. And I actually found him. That was back in the day when Philly U, Thomas Jefferson, when it had the Under Armour All-American camp, when it hosted it in Philly. So he's a Virginia kid. He's from Winchester. So I was going up to see him. And I think it was between us and Towson. And so I went up to see him. Mike Young, the head coach now at Virginia Tech, he was like, how good do you think he's going to be? And I said, Coach Holland, I got to, you got to ask some questions and kind of project out. So he was working the job at Chick-fil-A after school. And I asked him, I said, why are you working this job? And he said, my mom, she needs help. Like, I'm trying to bring in extra money for my mom. I was like, okay. So I go to that Chick-fil-A where Cam works at. Cam's not working that day. He's still in school. So I talked to Cam's manager. So I say, hey, how is Cam as a worker? He said, oh, he's a great worker, like great energy, blah, blah. He said, sometimes, he's just a few minutes late to work, And I was like, oh man, you're late to work, blah, blah, blah. So then I talked to Cam after school and I said, hey man, like I stopped by your Chick-fil-A, talked to your manager. He said you're a little bit late to work. And he said, yeah, coach, I am late because like where I live, it's a 3-mile walk to work. And my mom's at work and I'm trying to help her. And then it's a 3-mile walk back home. And I called Mike Young. I say, hey, this dude's he's going to be an all conference big for you because of this. Cam was inducted into the Wofford Hall of Fame, I think last year.
Wow.
Still playing in Japan. So those stories can help you project out.
That's quite the recon there, going to talk to the Chick-fil-A. Did you stop for food while you were in there?
Oh, yeah, I got food. Yeah, I got food. I got a sandwich. Yeah. I just stopped by to ask questions. I had to eat.
Yeah, that's quite some, because he was the big on like the Fletcher McGee teams, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's wow. That's quite the recon there. Talk about some digging.
Yeah.
I want to talk about one of your ex-teammates here, Joe Mazzulla. Yep. This guy is absolutely dialed in at all times. He watches the town before every game. They went on a small losing streak this year, being the defending champs and the 2 seed in the East. And he goes, guys, we got to get it together or we're gone. Like, this guy is dialed in at all times. Do you have a good Joe Mazzulla story for us?
Yeah, he is dialed in all the time. He is like that. Trying to think the best Joe Mazzulla story, the one I can tell on here. So after they won the championship last year, like I called him, I was talking to him, I was like, congrats, big time, whatever. He said, yeah, but everybody's got an advantage on me now. They got an advantage on me. Like, they're practicing, we're still playing, he's losing his mind. I said, Joe, it's like enjoy it just a little bit. I have that same problem enjoying, so I'm trying to give him advice that I don't take. And he's like, nah, they got advantage on us. They're practicing. And so that's where his mind went. As soon as they won, was on to, okay, the next year. And I think that, you're looking at their team now, they had 3 guys that played in the Olympics. So that takes a toll on you. Tatum, Holiday, Derek White, was he on the team? So, that you never know how it takes a toll on you. All the overuse and Tatum gets hurt, you just never know. But that's probably the latest Joe Mazzulla story that, kind of how his mindset is.
And that checks out completely. Just from everything that, we see in media and everything, but he's a phenomenal coach. All right. Our last question for you, and we asked this to everybody, so we're excited to hear your answer. Obviously, you're new to the city, but hopefully you've had some time to, it's a great food city. So hopefully you've had some time to eat some different things, try some different things. But obviously we're known for our cheesesteaks. So, Darris Nichols, have you tried any cheesesteaks yet here? And if so, where do you go?
Yes. Chubby's. I love Chubby's. I went last night. I'm a Chubby's guy. I love Chubby's. I've tried a lot of them, not all of them. But that's my spot.
Okay.
That's interesting. Kyle,
you been there?
I have been there, yes. It's good. I like it. But the problem is, well, not the problem.
What is the but?
The but is that right across the street's D'Alessandro's, and that's the most popular, one of the most popular answers.
So this is how I found it. So I was up here recruiting Philly U, and everybody's like, oh, you got to go to D'Alessandro's. So I had to get back to my next game. I'm like, I'm not waiting in that line over there. I'm going across the street. So I went to Chubby's, and I was like, So then I circled back and went to D'Alessandro's because I want to give them a chance, and I still like Chubby's better.
I respect it. Listen, I've done that exact same thing where I would try to go to D'Alessandro's and that line to wait too long. So, and Chubby's has parking, which
that's parking. And you don't have to pay cash.
True.
You don't have cash.
That's a big one right there.
That's true.
Yeah. That's the first Chubby's, by the way.
That is the first
Chubby's answer. Yeah.
Most of these guys are from Philly, so they probably, right? Most of these guys are from Philly, so
yeah, most of them
might get a different answer, but there's a few other ones that we got to try. We kind of bounce around as a staff and try different ones. So next on our list is Skinny Joe's.
Skinny Joe's. Never had that.
Well, you might be waiting in a line there. Maybe I don't think there's a place across the street that you could save yourself in. But the line.
Yeah, but we're gonna go there and then we're gonna go check out a Fields game. So
I was going to say that's down by like the Oregon station, right?
Yeah, you're down by the. Yeah, he's down by the stadium. Yeah. It's like right off the
like pretty south. Yeah. Gotcha.
Try Angelo's.
Angelo's?
Yes.
Angelo's up there. I like Oregon Steaks. Oregon Steaks, you can get off the subway, walk to Oregon Steaks, and you can walk right down 10th Street, and you'll end up at the center field gate at Citizens Bank Park. So,
Angelo's and Oregon Steaks.
Yeah, that's one for me. Just make sure that you're doing your staff workouts in between all these.
It's a lot. It's heavy. It's a lot of food, but it's great food. Yeah, Angelo's is also my favorite.
You know what? The crazy thing is, like, being here now is like, we had to bring in so many guys this year. So what is that? Those means official visits. So when everybody comes to Philly, oh, I gotta get cheesesteak. So we were eating a cheesesteak every day of the week, like this spring. So, we had to start working out.
Yeah, I don't blame you. They're pretty heavy. Awesome. Well, Coach, I guess one last question here just before we sign off. Obviously your first year being at LaSalle, your first year being in the Big Five. What are you most excited about and most looking forward to coaching at LaSalle and in the city?
Um, I'm excited about. I think the biggest thing I'm excited about the summer, like seeing these guys play for the first time, like seeing what we really have. Nobody knows what they really have, and you still don't know until you play against other teams either. I'm most excited for the Big Five games. I mean, we got to say that too, right? I'm on the pod, but that's what I'm most excited for.
All right, great answer. Cope, any final thoughts before we sign off here?
Coach, we very much appreciate your time. Good luck with everything. I'm sure you are super excited to actually play basketball and not have to be the GM here as you start summer workouts. So
yeah, I'm ready to get the ball bouncing.
Yeah, well, good luck to you. It's a great city to put pounds on and eat a lot. So as long as you're hitting your workouts and you're in the gym, man, you're gonna be good. But very much appreciate your time. Looking forward to get down there, Glazier Arena, for your debut on November 3rd.
Okay, I think is it the 5th?
Is it the 5th? I might have missed it.
Well, the season in general.
Hey, well, look, y'all come see us this summer, man. Y'all welcome anytime.
We appreciate that very much, Coach. And yes, thank you so much for coming on and joining us today. We very, very much appreciate it. We're looking forward to, being around the program and being around you guys. And this is awesome. So thank you so much, Coach, for coming on. We greatly appreciate it. And thank you all for tuning in, of course. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, appreciate you guys.